Welcome to the Classy Liberal podcast. I'm your host, Classy Liberal. Today, my guest is SJW Debates. Great name, by the way.
Yes, thank you very much. I came up with it at 2 a.m. while super drunk, and at times I wish I could change it, but you know what? We have to go forward with the choices that we've made in life. So I'm fine with it.
Cool, cool. So we'll just go back to the conversation we were having earlier, because there's a lot of that wasn't there. Uh, we're talking about the video you made about transgenders that I thought was really good because not only did you provide really useful information that debunked a lot of the claims of Ben Shapiro, but you also threw in some cinematics in there, some little kind of skit type of work, which I thought was really nice. So it was both entertaining and very informative.
Yeah, there's some research that I've actually done in subsequent videos that's uh, adding humor into any sort of instructional piece or rhetoric is. I say rhetoric, and that usually has a bad connotation to it, but having humor in your rhetoric makes people more open to accepting claims that they might not otherwise accept because it makes their minds more open. And yeah, I put up now. It's very basic editing, and I saw a lot of comments like, "Okay, I was horrified when I first saw this video, and I thought it was going to be, horrendously transphobic and terrible." But I was very pleasantly surprised. And I'm hoping that if it's fooled a few people who are actually already on board with trans rights, I'm hoping it also fooled a few people who are 100% not on board with trans rights, and it got them to watch the video. So that's, it's if it helps trans people and it makes them feel good to watch it, that's amazing. But I also want people who do not support trans people to watch that video, and if I change just a few minds on it, that's the ultimate goal.
I mean, if I saw your video probably let's say 2 years ago, you probably would have changed my mind. What really changed my mind was just me actually seeing what other people, people not just ContraPoints, but also the Messian TNM. I forgot his full name. TMM. He also made a really good video in response to Ben Shapiro and the whole transgender thing, which I thought was really good. And that sort of questioned my views on the whole transgender sort of anti-trans narrative that was passed around. But I think what's worse, and also just Ben Shapiro just being dishonest, is people like Steven Crowder that's really just making bigotry an entertainment thing. That's what
Yeah,
I
no,
see.
Steven Crowder, I'm told, is a comedian, and humor is obviously subjective, but he definitely has the cadence of someone who is trying very hard to be funny. And he has a lot of disparaging comments, and he has a lot of snide remarks that, I guess, technically in the scientific sense, qualify as humor. But that does make a lot of people more open to if not open more to his point of view, more open to dehumanizing the people that he's making fun of. It's a huge component of humor that it pulls you out of your moral roots, and even if in your day-to-day life you don't, it's kind of mean to shit on trans people, it's kind of mean to shit on gay people, it's kind of mean to be racist, but when he presents it in such a way that's humorous, it kind of gives you, oh, well, he's just joking, so it's okay that he's saying these really atrocious things about these minority groups. So that kind of try to be funny occasionally in my videos, but man, to use it as a shield against bigoted rhetoric is doing a disservice both to people with a modicum of intelligence, but also doing a disservice to humor. Hello?
Okay. No, I was just making the stream is working fine. I think everything's working fine. So good thing we
There we
got
go.
all that. So another thing I also wanted to bring up was your new series, which I hope you keep making more of these because these are really good for me since I'm a student, so there's a lot of topics in medicine I want to learn about, and these are good because these are basically introductions to sort of complex topics. Is your 5 on 5 series, is it?
5 and 5.
5 and 5, there we
So
go.
it's a series where I try to take 5 studies on a given topic, and it's a joke that I'm going to probably keep going in 5 minutes or more, because I've yet to get one in under 5 minutes because there's just a little bit too much to say. But I'm really glad that I started the series too. It lets me get a lot more research out there in bite-sized chunks, because no matter how much effort I put into a video, if you see a video that's 40 minutes long, it's kind of hard to click on that. It's kind of hard to commit to 40 minutes or even 20 minutes if you crank it out to 2x speed like I usually do. It's just nice to have that little bite-sized chunk of, hey, here's a concept, let me know a little bit more about it. I think almost as much information is going to stick with you in that really short video as if it was presented in a much longer video. So it's something that I enjoy doing, and I will definitely continue to do in the future.
Alright, cool. So let's talk about like one of these videos. Medicalization. Do you wanna explain what that is?
Yeah, so this was the idea of one of my patrons who asked me, hey, can you do a little bit of research on the concept of medicalization? And it's something that it made sense to me, but I've never actually looked into it before. And I found a lot of really, really interesting stuff that's I'm still thinking on to this day, and I'm really glad I did the research. So medicalization is when someone, so when the medical field like takes a set of symptoms, a set of traits, usually not usually, but they take a set of traits and they say, hey, this is a disorder. This is something that needs to be treated, and this is how we're going to treat it. So that's a neutral term. It sounds kind of scary, but it's a neutral term. So, we medicalized cancer, we medicalized diabetes. All that stuff is fine. There's the ends where it gets a little bit iffy and a little bit shaky is when you start medicalizing mental illness.
Right.
Because a lot of that is subjectivity, and a lot of that is dependent on the norms of society in which you live in. Because the closest thing we have to a diagnosis of mental illness is this going to harm your function in society? And obviously that has a lot of subjective roots into it. So what does it mean to function in society? What are the norms of society right now? So something that's it really stuck close to me because so I'm in grad school right now. So you're in school. The first time, am I right, for your undergrad?
Yeah,
Pre-med?
I'm an undergraduate student, yeah.
Yeah, so I've been through that. Now I'm going back because I got sick of making money and being comfortable, so I needed to be in poverty again. So I went back to school, and I'm now in my master's program, and I was having a lot of trouble focusing, and so and I was having a lot of issues with depression and a complete lack of motivation. So thankfully, I got it covered through my university healthcare, and I went to see a psychiatrist, and they diagnosed me with depression, and this was news to me, ADHD, because I was having so much trouble focusing. Now I have to wonder, would I have ADHD if I had a different job that didn't require such an extreme hyper-focusing on research, an extreme hyper-focusing on specific tasks? And that's where the concept of medicalization comes in. Like, am I medicalized right now because they've diagnosed me with ADHD? Is this contingent upon the situation that I'm in, the circumstances that I'm in, or is this an intrinsic part of my being that will be diagnosed no matter what? And I think that's a really interesting concept. And a lot of the research I did said that it actually does matter a lot on what the people around you are thinking of you. So does medicalization, especially of mental illness, come from intrinsic factors within you, or are they extrinsic? Because I found this out during the research, and later it happened to me in real life, where if you are feeling okay, but a psychiatrist or someone with some sort of medical pull says that actually no, you're not okay because you experience these symptoms that I have deemed to be abhorrent or that I have deemed to be outside the norms of society, well, that means that you have some sort of disorder, and I'm going to diagnose you with it. And if you don't agree with that, that's just a part of your diagnoses. You have to agree with my assessment of your character. Otherwise, that is part of your diagnoses. So I actually had someone, so a few months into my medication on ADHD, I decided that I needed to, we have a guest bedroom, and it was just a junk room. It was just cat litter everywhere because we had a spare litter box, a bed that was unusable because we had so much shit piled up on top of it. So like, you know what? I need to turn this into an actual office. And so I took the course of 3 days, a good 30 hours of work, clearing out that room, getting some new furniture, vacuuming it 45 times over because it was so awful. And I made an office that I was really, really proud of. I hyper-focused on it for 3 days, but the end product was something that I'm using right now. I'm in my office right now, and it's something that I didn't have before. Because previously I was at my kitchen. I was at my kitchen table, which you can actually see in the trans video. That's our kitchen table because I had no one else to work from. When I told that to my psychiatrist, they said, okay, it's great that you felt proud of what you did, but that's a subjective measurement. Objectively, that's a form of hypomania. And so she took something that I was happy that happened to me. I was happy I was able to put in that sort of work, and I had a really good tangible benefit from it. But she said that objectively that was hypomania, and that was something to be fixed. There was something wrong with me, some sort of like my medication was off for that to be happening. And that kind of reaffirms some of the research I did on medicalization, where, it's not really up to you, because you're a patient, and once you've been deemed mentally ill, you can't be trusted to give an objective assessment of your own experiences. So I can see it definitely from both directions. Whether or not medicalization is a good or bad thing, I think it's a neutral thing for the most part, but it's something that I think that we all need to be aware of in how that's used potentially to harm people, especially marginalized people like the mentally ill.
I mean, yeah, like with the mentally ill, it's just really difficult because with mental illness, most of the time you can't tell, what their condition is with just a blood test or even like a CT or PET scan. You have to use like some sort of like metric of asking them questions and just like observing their behavior. Alright, I think we're back on. Yeah, it's gonna keep happening. I hope like after like 3 episodes I just have this down, because I'm just gonna have to do this for now and I can't use Hangouts now, so.
Hey, that's okay. Normally, so when we record our podcast, it's just recorded completely offline, not streaming. That way I can edit anything like this out.
I'm sorry?
We record it offline, so just in Discord, and then if something like that happens, we just edit it out and upload it as a video.
Okay.
But there's a certain appeal to doing it live. So.
Yeah, there is a certain appeal doing it live. I mean, in the past, I did record them, but I wanted to do them live. 1, because of laziness, and 2, because, I don't know, I just like the idea of, like, oh, it's live, and, like, whatever's there is there, so, people can't claim I'm, like, not, that I'm, like, purposely, like, editing out certain things for, I don't know, some sort of malicious reason.
Yeah, there's a reason live streaming is a thing. So there's a definite appeal to that.
Right. No, I was just gonna say that, like, with mental health, it's, like, complicated, because, like, there's no blood test or even, like, a CT or PET scan that can tell what you have. It's, like, based on, like, what the doctor says, observes from, like, your behaviors, your responses, and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, and a lot of it is based on circumstance. When they say that you can't function in society, well, what is your function and what is your society? Both of those have a lot of layers to them that just cannot, by their very definition, be objective. So, to use it again, like, would I have ADHD if I was, I don't know, if I was an accountant or something like that? If I didn't have to do a ton of research and have a lot of other things on my plate, would I have ADHD? I don't know. Like, is there an objective standard that should be met for all people, and should there be an objective standard applied to all people? Should it be contingent on your circumstances?
That's kind of interesting. You're diagnosed later in your adult life, because most people, they get diagnosed as children in schools, usually due to their like lack of like academic performance. But that's like a whole another issue. Like,
yeah, I did really well in school. Like, I got all A's up through high school. I had a 3.5 GPA through undergrad. That would have been higher if I'd give a shit my senior year. My senior year, it's kind of checked out. I got a C in intro to fitness. I got a C in the intro class to my major just because I didn't show up to half the classes. But no, and it didn't really show up. And I don't know if it even showed up if it was just circumstances where I had so much work to do and so many responsibilities, and add to that the stress of not having money again. So for a few years, for the first time in my life, I had enough money to live on. I had enough money to be comfortable. And then even though I got married and I had a little bit of extra, little bit of support, our income got cut by like 2/3 because I had to quit two well-paying jobs to go back to school. And what if all that together, did that change something about my mental health, or did it just put me in circumstances where these symptoms were now a problem? Did that become medicalized through circumstance rather than anything intrinsic to my brain, anything intrinsic to my physiology? So I think it's a new way to look at mental illness that's I somehow hadn't thought of before, even though that it seems very obvious now. So I'm glad I did the research into that.
Alright. Also wanted to ask you about the second video, the second 5 and 5 you made. I actually haven't got a chance to look at that one. Yeah, testosterone in sport. So is that like related to like performance enhancing drugs or
Not performance enhancing drugs directly. So it is related to trans issues to a certain extent.
right.
Where a lot of people will say that since trans women went through male puberty, that they have certain advantages in sports. So I wanted to find out, well, what does the literature say about testosterone levels in sports? Because I think the joke / analogy that I use is that a lot of people view testosterone as like the midichlorians of sports performance, and the more you have, the objectively better you are at your sports. Like it's a real life D&D strength stat. The more testosterone you have, the stronger you are. When nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, we find that just from the way hormones work, a lot of strength athletes, for example, powerlifters. You know what the sport of powerlifting is?
Not sure if I'm familiar with it.
So the sport of powerlifting is squat, bench, deadlift. Lifting the absolute heaviest weight you possibly can. And research consistently finds, when compared to other athletes, that powerlifters have the lowest levels of testosterone of any of the athletes that they're compared to.
Oh,
So
that's
if you test their testosterone levels, they're very, very low. And it's just and in my opinion, and I think I'm well supported in the research on this, it's because they're very, very sensitive to testosterone because they've upregulated their cells to be very sensitive to it. So in the same way that if you take performance-enhancing drugs, if you take synthetic testosterone, your body stops producing it. And if you take it in such a level that it's just physiologically not feasible, like you're not going to experience that level of testosterone naturally, your body starts to down-regulate. It starts to lose receptors to that hormone in the same way that type 2 diabetes works. So if you're just bombarded with insulin for 10, 20, 30 years, your body becomes less sensitive to it. And so the same level of insulin just doesn't have the same effect on you that it used to. So I think that happens in reverse with upregulation. If you need a lot of testosterone, you start just making use of what you have even better. So athletes who need a ton of testosterone just upregulate their cells so they don't have to produce as much of it. They become more efficient. And physiologically speaking, you always want to be more efficient. You want to do more with less. And where that is relevant in the especially in the trans athletes discussion is that you cannot take testosterone levels from one athlete and compare them to another athlete to assess performance. I've seen in multiple studies that there is almost no correlation to between testosterone levels and performance unless you're talking about performance enhancing drugs, unless you're talking about like synthetic anabolic steroids. And in that case, like you cannot look at natural testosterone levels across athletes and assess their performance. It's just an unscientific way to go about things.
Alright, cool.
So,
oh yeah, so...
And that's kind of cheating because it's me combining my two fields of interest and study, like my actual field of the closest thing I have to expertise, which is, it's not really biomechanics, but it's exercise physiology, which is tangentially related to it. And I've done a lot of research on, trans issues and stuff like that. So it's taking like the two things that I've put the most time into researching and combining them in one video. And you get to see my my little garage gym that I probably don't use enough. That was a fun one to make.
So, like, you're, like, into, like, working out as well, right? I think you...
It's my major. Unfortunately, I've kind of fallen off the wagon a little bit. I used to be a bodybuilder, and then after that, I was a powerlifter. And then I kept eating like a powerlifter despite not training like one anymore. And then I got fat. So now I'm a bear. I'm a thick boy.
Alright, cool.
I know how to work out. Let's put it that way. I was a
Okay.
personal trainer for 6 years.
Wow, that's actually really impressive. So...
Yeah, it was one of the well-paying jobs that I dropped to go back to school.
So, if you had the choice to, like, make money by, like, let's say, making videos, reading outrageous articles, and having outrageous reactions to them, would you do it?
No, I couldn't live with myself. It seems like I care very much about making arguments that are well supported in empirical evidence. I think I'm not gonna begrudge anyone for being entertained by reaction videos, because I mean I made one today to Tim Pool, and it was kind of deliberately to show that this kind of content doesn't take a ton of effort. And again, I don't disparage anyone for making content like that or enjoying content like that, but it's not something I couldn't do it and feel proud of my work, just because I want to make arguments. I want to have a train of logic that gets you from point A to point B to convince you to come over to my side, and I want every step to be supported by empirical evidence. So I want to do the research to say I want everything I say to be backed up and as bulletproof as I can get it, because I don't mind criticism, but I want someone to have to work very, very hard to bring up any good counter arguments to what I'm saying.
Man, here I was thinking, oh, the left cares about its emotions and feelings.
Emotion is important. Emotion is what gets you to buy into a point, to buy into an argument, to buy into ideology. Unfortunately, facts can't get you there. You have to care about facts first. So it is emotion that is first and last in getting you to buy into an argument. So that's why making a video entertaining is so important. That's why adding humor is so important. That's why having good production values is so important, because no one is going to be convinced of just no one is convinced or entertained by just a collection of studies read to you in a monotone. There has to be structure. There has to be a reason for you to click on the video in the first place, and then there needs to be a reason for you to keep watching.
Well, yeah, like I'm sure there are a lot of like research seminars and research conferences uploaded, in YouTube, but like they're not getting the views. The ones that get the views are of course the people that, the videos that people find entertaining. But then how come Tim Pool makes like a lot of views, like just by barely breaking a sweat? By not breaking a sweat at all, just like putting on his webcam, opening that streaming software, and just reading an article.
So I will fully admit my own hypocrisy in what I'm about to say. Most people, myself included, at the end of the day, we want to feel good. We want to have our worldview confirmed, because so I'm 29 years old. I want to believe that, the 29 years I've spent on this earth, I've been leading to something good. So I want to watch videos that reinforce my own worldview. And with someone like Tim Pool, people will watch his videos because they know that they get to watch about how the left is so terrible, but still think that they're centrist. Still think that the only reason that they criticize the left so hard is just because they're staying objective, and they don't need to criticize the right, or they don't need to look deeper into the right. They need to look more at the left. So people watch Tim Pool because they want their own feelings to be assuaged. It's like, no. All this hatred you had for the left, it doesn't make you a right-winger. It doesn't mean you're a conservative. It doesn't mean you have fascistic tendencies. It just means you're staying objective. Because Tim Pool is a centrist. In fact, he's not even a centrist. He's on the left. And if you hear someone on the left criticize them, that must mean that the left is actually bad. In the same way that hearing Blair White criticize trans people makes you feel, see, I'm not a bigot. Here's this trans person agreeing with me. Or you say someone like, I think C.J. Pearson, if I'm remembering that off the top of my head, a black guy who's criticizing the left and saying that actually the left are the real racists and Republicans are helping the black community the most. If you hear him saying, see, I'm not racist, here's this black guy to agree with me. If you hear someone like Brandon Straka, a gay man, saying how the left is so horrible to gay people and that, the gay people are treated just fine and we're all just a bunch of whiny babies. See, I'm not a bigot, I'm not a homophobic, here's this gay person agreeing with me. So I think it's all in the same family. You can make a lot of money by telling right-wingers that no, actually, you don't have any sort of prejudice that you need to look deeper into. Here's someone who is on the other side who agrees with all of your assessments. That means that they're objective. That means that you're not espousing any prejudice that you haven't bothered to look into.
I mean, yeah, it's basically, I hate to say this, but, tokenism,
Yeah.
But...
And it doesn't really matter if they believe in what they're saying or not. I'm fully So there's some evidence to say that Steven Crowder actually isn't as transphobic as he says in his videos, or that he's not as homophobic in real life as he is in his videos. I don't think that matters, because we can never know truly whether someone has a certain ideology. We can only inductively reason from it, and we can only look at the consequences from their rhetoric. That's all that matters. So whether Steven Crowder is actually transphobic, or whether C.J. Pearson actually believes what he says, or whether Blair White actually believes what she says, doesn't actually matter at the end of the day. It matters what other people take from their rhetoric, and that's the only thing that matters, in my opinion. So I have to put in my opinion. So because even I, like you can probably tell, even I buy into my own stuff, and I can always look deeper into why I think the way I do, and it's something that I still struggle with. I'm questioning myself a lot. Like I get into Discord servers with the express, like to argue with opinions that I haven't fully fleshed out yet, because I want to hear that perspective that's I know that I haven't thought through a lot of positions that I've established. I know I haven't thought through them very deep enough to justify having a strong opinion on them. So, and it's a tough thing to do, because we can't do that with every single position that we have. Like there's at a certain point you have to go out and spend time with your family, go out and watch some movies that have nothing to do with politics, go and do your job that has nothing to do with your online presence. It's a really hard thing to do, and I definitely have a lot of work to do in that regard.
Yeah, no, I definitely see what you're saying though. Like at like some point, like you just have to like understand, so like there are other things in life that just take priorities. Not that like this isn't important, because it is though. Like like we
Yeah.
have to talk about these issues. We have to um because like some of these issues just aren't spoken honestly. Let's be honest. And like that brings me to the next video. This one was like a collaboration you did with LSP, Liberal Sanity Project, the dishonest
Yeah,
framing of
it's less of a collaboration and more that he did almost all of the work. So he wrote the script, he actually did the video. The only things I did in that video were I helped him edit, to take out. Yeah, I helped him edit, because it always helps to have someone else look at your work to see if there's things that need to be cut usually. And I did the voiceover for it. So we say collaboration, and it's up on my channel because it got taken off of his. But the only things I did was voice it, help editing a little bit, help the actual script editing, not the video editing. And on my channel, I blurred out some of the Nazi imagery that he took from the people that he's criticizing. I say I want to make that clear. When I say I edited out the Nazi imagery, it's the images that he took from people he was criticizing. He didn't put in Nazi imagery. And there was this one passage that was just disgustingly racist. Think of a slur, and it's in this passage from this person. And he wanted to leave it in there for impact, and I can absolutely respect that, but the algorithm is going to see that, so I just bleeped out all the words. So he did 90% of the work in that video. So
Okay, so like he wrote the script, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, because those are his thoughts, not yours though, because the way you were reading it sounds like, because you can kind of tell if it's style of writing, you know, once you watch his videos.
And it's something that's I wanted to add my so he asked me to do the voice work for it because we were on Discord, and I wanted to read his script out for other people, and he liked the way I read it. And you could definitely hear that I'm using a lot. But I will say that I would not have done the voice acting for that. I wouldn't have read the script. I wouldn't have put that on my channel if I didn't agree with what he was saying. So yeah, I don't want to make it sound like, yeah, he did all the work for it, but I stand by everything he said. I put my name on it 100%.
Alright, and why dance around with Elsie? Pretty much everyone hates him in the community, even his own community.
Even, yeah, I like LSP for, so full disclosure, he was one of the first YouTubers who kind of gave me the time of day. So back when I had 10 followers, he was one of the first people who followed me. When I made my first video, he was like my cheerleader, my sole cheerleader online, who said, you need to make this video. And when I sent him the first 8 minutes of it, like, this is actually good. You need to increase the volume because it's garbage and I can't hear you, but this is actually some quality work. He was one of the first people to reach out to me, and I actually do like him as a person. We hang out a lot. So there is a problem with cancel culture online in general, but the left, I think, gets some fair criticism from it. I don't want to cancel anybody unless they've done something egregious. I think that a lot of different approaches can work, um, and I'm really hesitant to say anybody is bad in our community unless they have done something that I think is just way outside the bounds of what I find acceptable. So people like Christy Winters and Kevin Logan, I have my own criticism of them, but I think they do good work, and I want them to stay in the community. And I would much rather them to just improve on the things that they need to improve on than to be kicked out or canceled. Same with LSP. I like him a lot. There's some things that I wish he would stop doing. There's some things that that he can improve on himself, but he's still fundamentally he's a really good guy. He's incredibly smart. He makes really good content. He's very thoughtful in what he produces, and I don't like that he's been kind of ostracized away from BreadTube, because his contribution is going to help it far more than it's going to hurt it. Like he's only a net positive for our I say our community, like I'm a meaningful part of it, but he's been unfairly ostracized. You know what? Even Kraut, and I say this, he made his name in anti-SJW YouTube, and there's a lot of criticism that I have of Kraut, especially anytime he brings up Muslims. But he's fundamentally a good guy, and he, again, is very thoughtful in what he puts out there. And I'm a leftist and an anti-SJW just because I think that if you put rational thought into most things, it will lead you to my positions. I think that about myself. Of course, I'm biased, but that's kind of what I look for. Are you putting thought and effort into the content you produce, and are you trying to do a positive good in the world that goes beyond just shitting on other people? And I think people like LSP and Kraut and even Kevin Logan and Christy Winters, I think all of them they approach it from very different perspectives, but their input at the end of the day is helping us way more than it hurts us. And I think all of them is good people. And so, yeah.
Well, I mean,
that was a big long rambling spiel. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's better if you talk more, actually. But not sure if I can agree with you with Kevin Logan. I mean, like Christy Winters is a really intelligent person. I remember back to my old anti-SJW days when I was watching her debate with Sargon. Even at that point, I admitted she won the debate. She was more prepared for it. She had the sources. She was able to argue her points better. But of course, like, there's an issue with her personality and her interactions online. But with Kevin Logan, I mean, he's mostly, like, if I'm being honest with you, a drama channel. I mean, he mostly makes exposés on people. Which, don't get me wrong, I've enjoyed some of them. Like, I'm not gonna, like,
oh yeah,
you know. But
I think that's where I'm getting at, that there's a place for all of them, because some people like drama channels.
Sure.
Some people like edgy styles of humor, and that's where I think people like Vosh and Destiny, even though I have my criticisms of both of them, there's a place for that. And that's going to draw a certain type of person kind of over towards our side. People like Kevin Logan, he is kind of a drama channel, but still, he's making a drama channel that's going to pull people over to the left. Christy Winters is an academic who has a certain style of delivery that's going to pull over certain people towards the left, even though I think that she's not super leftist. It's still going to pull people, hopefully, away from the right. People like LSP, who are a little bit edgy, who do make... he is very much inspired by some of the anti-SJW videos of old. He makes good content that is going to draw a certain type of person over towards the left, and that's why I think that it's better if we draw those people in and just make criticisms that are going to be taken in good faith. That's we will do better with those people in our community. We'll do better as a group together than we will by infighting too much and splintering off into different factions. So, again, that was a big rambling spiel, full of hugs and kisses.
No, I definitely see where you're coming from. I mean, just my criticism of BreadTubers though is that, like, I'm no way like trying to say that their intent is like malicious or anything, but like I think they tend to sort of they're called BreadTubers for a reason. They tend to sort of like advertise Marxism without really being Marxist, and I guess it's to make certain people like more open to like ideas in the left, like maybe open more to social democracy. I just don't think it's really honest. I don't think it's the best way to do it. But that's just me. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and there is no one best way to do things. Like what will work for some people won't work for others. Like, I'm more open to things like, so LSP says if I can only save you, him or Kraut in a fire, I can only save one. Who do I save? Dude, let's see. Well, unfortunately, you've used this analogy for fetuses in the past, so whichever one of you is lighter. I'm sorry, man. I will save you both. There's a reason I deadlift, is so I can pick up 2 people at once and drag them out of a fire. That's my answer to that.
If you can actually do that, that's really impressive. And we're talking about 2 adult males here. One of them more on the heavy side.
Well, hey, if they weigh on average 200 pounds, my best deadlift is 480 pounds. I can absolutely drag that. If I'm dragging them, they don't weigh as much. So yeah, that's gonna happen. Where was my train of thought? What was I talking about before saying that I would save LSP like the brave hunk of stud that I am?
We're talking about like messages and like how do you want to like.
Oh, messaging. Yeah, I think. So I've only read a little bit of Marx, and I'm hesitant to say that I'm very hesitant to say that I'm a Marxist just because I don't. There's a lot of flavors that can entail, but I'm definitely on the left, and I think that anybody who's there's a gut reaction that a lot of people online have to say, "Oh, communism, that's bad. That killed 500 billion people," and I think there's a lot of room to be said that just the subtle. Even in a joking way, and people like H Bomber guy, when they'll say like, when his flat Earth videos, like, maybe we'll turn Marx Sergeant into Marx Sergeant. Even in a joking way, making people have less of a visceral negative reaction to leftist ideas. Yeah, I think that's a good thing. They don't have to fully go into it or fully embrace the ideas or even fully explain them. I think there's a place for just making people less viscerally afraid of leftist ideas. Because there has been a lot of, it seems conspiratorial when I say propaganda, but I use propaganda as a neutral term. There has been a lot of propaganda pushing people against the left, and how, and a lot of people, I know definitely, with myself included, just kind of thought the leftist ideas were bad just because they were bad and didn't really put too much thought into it. And having people say, well, actually, leftist ideas are good, even without explaining them, just breaking down that one barrier might make people a little bit more interested in pursuing those ideas further. And whether or not they end up coming all the way to the left to the point where they're anarchists, or just a little bit to the left where they're, hey, you know what? Healthcare for all is actually a pretty good idea, and we should probably invest more in worker co-ops and think a little bit more about how the labor theory of value and why that's a thing that we should at least consider. So I think there's room for everyone. There's room for a ton of different approaches. I'd rather see us come together than splinter off.
Right. I mean, for me, the reason I somewhat shifted to the left a little bit more was because I found that it was actually easier to argue certain sides of the left more than it was for the right. Because I remember back in, like, I think it was maybe around 2017, where I was, like, not a Trump supporter, but I was, like, a Trump apologist. And, wow, the amount of, like, gymnastics I had to go to, like, defend him. Like, I'm surprised I didn't, like, apply for the Olympics or anything like that. Because I was one of those people.
Like, you probably could have tried out for the NBA with how good you got at pivoting.
Like, it was just, like, I just found that it was easier to, like, argue for the left in a lot of issues, not every issue, but, like, for a lot of issues, just because, I'm sad to say this, at least for me, in my opinion, I found that's where the data landed a lot of times. So
yeah, it's a little bit of a meme online that the facts and logic guy is kind of cringeworthy, but I very much care about facts and empirical evidence and data, and I think if there's a little bit of a joke, even in academia, there's lies, damned lies, and statistics. That you can make statistics say almost anything you want to, but if you know how to read statistics and you know how to look a little bit deeper into data, you can kind of parse out what is garbage data and what is actually good data, what's sound methodology. And if you look at a lot of sound methodology, a lot of it does lead you to the left. And it's a little bit cringeworthy to say that you like facts and logic and reason. But yeah, I think if you use proper facts and proper proper logic, and I mean logic in the actual like, you know, point A supports point B, which leads you to conclusion C. Wow, that was terrible. That was terrible. Actual like, college logic. Just so you know, cut that out. Cut that. But if you use proper reasoning, you will get to leftist positions without having to be convinced of any emotional arguments, even if, like I said earlier, emotions won't let you buy into it in the first place. So, of course, I have my own motivated reasoning in a lot of things. Like, I'm gonna want to find statistics that say that being gay is okay. Of course, I'm gonna want to find that. I'm not a perfect arbiter of reason. I just like everyone else. My own self-interest and my own preconceived like biases are gonna influence me in some way. But I would like to think, in my own subjective opinion, that I do have a lot of data to support the positions that I've taken. I do have a lot of sound reasoning that gets me to more leftist positions, like Medicare for all, or like at least at least some form of Medicare for all, some form of single-payer healthcare. I think I do have data to support those opinions. I think I can back them up. I think there is data to support treating gay and trans people with respect. And oddly enough, I've done more research on trans people than I have on gay people, just because it's where I've landed. But yeah, there's just an overwhelming amount of evidence to say that supporting trans people in their identity helps them way more than trying to fix them of their quote-unquote delusions. Anybody who has that kind of position isn't basing it in any kind of empirical data. Even when they say things like, well, it's just biology. What do you mean it's biology? Everything is biology. We physically cannot do things that go against biology. That's why it's biology. So what are you saying when you say that, you know, biology supports you? Like, no, it doesn't. Biology doesn't support shit. Biology is descriptive. We're trying to impose prescriptive things on society. So what do you mean when you say biology? And if they can't support that, like, and I think that trans activists can support it beyond just one or two axioms like that, you know, I think that if you use logic and reason properly, you'll come to our side. You'll start to identify more with the SJWs than you will without them.
Well, that's a take a lot of people are never gonna buy into, but you know that's cool.
And of course, that's not everybody's going to buy into it. Like, there is a certain amount of when I came up with the name SJW Debates, and that's my online handle, that's YouTube channel, I do want to kind of play off. I want to get people who hate SJWs and think that we're just we use only emotion, we don't think logically, we don't use data. I want them to kind of come over to my channel and start to try to make fun of me. And there's a lot of YouTube comments that I've got that are just making fun of, you know, they're saying a lot of transphobic things and a lot of homophobic things, and I delete those without a second thought. But if anybody has any, like, can counter any of the data that I give out, or any of the logic, any of the, if they can point out a logical fallacy that I put forth, I want them to do it, because I try very hard to make sure, like I said, that everything I say is as bulletproof as I can possibly make it. And I haven't gotten a ton of that, and I've only gotten homophobic and transphobic abuse, and honestly, I think that means I'm doing something right.
I mean, we'll see. Your channel will grow, your audience will become more general, so who knows, maybe we will one day find a contender. I guess maybe I can now mention that I would like to have like another discussion with you on other topics, and even maybe some mock debates at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Debates, and I like them a lot. And some of the quote-unquote debates that I have, like on our Discord server, aren't live broadcasts. I like them quite a bit, and I enjoy having them. So yeah, if you ever want me to have on for a discussion where you're not talking me up, and I very appreciate you talking me up, I sincerely do. That actually means a lot to me. So
cool.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do it.
So if there's anything else you would like to clarify or say, if you'd like, we could like maybe end things here.
Sure. Thank you so much. Um, I think that emotion does matter, and that most people will stick to a position because it appeals to them at a level that is deeper than the conscious brain uh, is will process. So I hope that I do a mix of both. I hope that I can appeal to people's emotions, but do so in a way that the logic that I use to get there and the facts that I use to support my positions are as bulletproof as I can get them. So I win on facts and I win on feelings. That's what I hope to do with my content.
Alright, cool. Well, if you guys would like to check out SJW Debates or Justin's channel, there will be a link in the description below. Thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. It's really crazy when anybody wants to hear my opinion on things. So you've boosted my ego for the night, and I thank you very much.
Sure.
We can all use that every now and again. Thank you so much for having me on. This was actually a really cool discussion, even though I felt like I rambled a ton.
It's fine, man. Well, until then, stay classy. Thank you for tuning in on the Classy Liberal Podcast. If you'd like to receive updates on future podcast episodes, then consider giving me a follow on Twitter. If you like this podcast, then I recommend you check out my YouTube channel. I have other videos on many topics. If you really enjoy the show and would like to support me, then consider becoming a Patreon on my Patreon. Thank you very much.